Welcome to the new room. Still got patches on the wall. So I hope you enjoy that. A lot to talk about. I don't think the last time that we chatted on this section of the channel was in October. So let's see here. Let me try something. I'm gonna move that just a little bit closer. Still got the fish tank. Still got the plant. Still got kiwi. But we have a lot of additions. So let's get into it. Welcome back, Knox Studios. We're talking about, well, we were talking a lot about the chakras and meditation and 7-year cycle on the last episode. I'd have to say it's been 2.5 months now since then. I'm also a year older. Not really a full year, obviously, just I turned over. So as we were talking about the 7-year cycle, I'm back to fear. So spirituality has expired and fear has taken over. No, but in all seriously, it doesn't really just work like that. It's that for whatever reason, how the last couple months of 2020 were culminated for me, I ultimately landed an opportunity to get back to Washington State. So if you know anything about the history here, is that I was in Spokane for 5 years. Those 5 years were filled with a lot of positivity in terms of finally moving into the first couple of houses I'd ever lived in, doing my first couple of years of gardening, getting kiwi, and then ultimately kind of flopping, where I ended up back in Utah for a year. And shortly after that year, almost to the day of being in Utah, I moved to Idaho. So then I've been in Idaho for very close to 2 years. So now I did put in my 2 weeks notice at the job. I left on good terms. I worked my tail off, but I haven't been working since December 4th, 2020. I have had an influx of financial benefits, so there's a lot of things that we can talk about on that front, and ultimately I'll give you the rundown on what has happened and where we're going, so stay tuned. Alright, so let's turn this up, make sure we get good audio this time. Always a fickle thing dealing with audio, but yeah, there is a lot to talk about. I'm now in Washington State. I'm currently in Kennewick, Washington, which is about 20 miles north of the Oregon border, whereas opposed when I was in Spokane, that's about 10 to 15 miles-ish, depending on where you're at, Spokane Valley or Spokane, from the Idaho border. So I know most notably up there is Coeur d'Alene, and down here is like, I don't know, Pendleton, Oregon, perhaps. But let's go over a little bit of kind of why this has taken place and what I kind of foresee maybe in the near to distant future. So I have been wanting to get out of Idaho. I appreciated it. I thought it was a win-win situation. I did leave on with the job on very good terms. They were very appreciative of the time I put in there, and I did offer quite a bit of feedback in terms of why I felt that they actually had me for as long as they did and where they kind of fell short. But all in all, I was able to financially get myself into a much better situation. And then, as I haven't really covered much on this podcast portion of the YouTube channel just yet, but a year ago almost, right after the Super Bowl, my friend Johnny had passed away in Kansas City, and then the very next day my father passed. Or rather, he had an accident at work where he then passed a couple days later on the 6th of February. And then, of course, last year also in August, I also lost both my grandparents in a matter of 24 hours. In the long run, as that culminated into the end of the year where I'd already saved up over $10K, I ended up actually then receiving additional funds for inheritances from both my grandparents, and then my dad or my stepmom paid us a portion of what my dad would be providing in the long run on Christmas. So as this all kind of culminated in me kind of getting to a more physical end of me really, I just mentally didn't want to go to work anymore. It wasn't just because I didn't want to work, it was because I was physically exhausted. I have this tendency sometimes to kind of maybe overly broaden my horizons to where I can't really manage everything as well as I wish I could. So that kind of led me to making the ultimate decision of, for the first time in a really long time, being that much closer to Utah in where I was in Idaho, to take that month off. I did go down to for Christmas, as well as a weekend before Thanksgiving, to visit my brothers. He bought a new house. Had gone up, that's when I put in my 2 weeks notice. I came back, worked those 2 weeks, took December off, and during that month where I was kind of deciding on whether or not to take another job where I was, my old friend from Utah, now he's been living up here since maybe a year after I got to Spokane or so, in Tri-Cities. And we talked quite a bit because I'm always kind of like looking for a good deal on auctions, and we kind of just chatted back and forth quite periodically, and he's helped me on a number of different projects in my time in Spokane. So he had his parents move back up to Post Falls, and he wanted the opportunity to maybe stay in Tri-Cities and clean up what they have here in the matter of his real estate business. So they have this rental, and I told him, hey, well, this is my budget. This is kind of where I'm at. If I can fit that, then I'd love to help out and be back in Washington. So that's kind of how that all culminated. So on December 31st, we'll back up with this a little bit. Right before Christmas, I got the suspicion that Kiwi wasn't just winter fat, because we were lacking quite a bit on like getting her out for exercise, just the work schedule right at the very end. And pretty much right as my birthday rolled over, if you would have seen my Facebook, YouTube thing, Kiwi had a bunch of play friends, and I would constantly be letting her out roaming, but I didn't know that she had gotten a little bit further than normal in terms of her not going into heat. So I pick her up one week. It's fairly normal, a little heavier obviously, but the very next week I pick her up the same, and I'm like, oh, this is different. Like, this is noticeably different. And then I'm paying closer attention to her, rolling her over on her belly, and her nipples are extended. She's maturing quite a bit. So while I was on my Christmas vacation in Utah visiting family, she was very noticeably pregnant. And I had the opportunity right on Christmas Eve for the very first time to actually feel all the puppies completely moving and kicking all over the place in her belly. So that was quite a Christmas little miracle for me. Because I think it was like we were talking about manifestation a couple episodes ago, and a couple of years ago, I actually right around Christmas had posted something on my social media about maybe Christmas looks like this with a litter of Ridgeback puppies on it, and lo and behold, I just had to wait another year. Now it goes even further because we leave Utah on 26th or so. I ended up spinning out of my truck coming home. I was kind of like in a rush. I shouldn't have left. It's inexcusable for what I could have done versus what I did do. But I ended up spinning out of my truck and hitting a guardrail on my way back just north of Tremonton, Utah. It didn't really cause anything, but it definitely startled me, and I was freaked out because I got a pregnant dog in the car, everything I got from Christmas, and I'm going down. All of a sudden, a blizzard comes out of nowhere, and I, was just maybe not thinking as well as I should have and slowing the car at a very slight turn, and I end up spinning left, right, overcorrect, and then I'm heading toward the ditch, and then and I come to and I hit the guardrail, not the guardrail, but the reflector pole or whatever, and it kind of gives me enough stop momentum to where I just end up sliding through it and coming to a halt in the middle of the freeway at about like midnight or so. Anyhow, we did get home slowly but surely. The damage wasn't horrible, but I then decided to just sell the Durango, pack up everything, We ended up leaving Idaho December 31st. And then I stayed in Oregon for New Year's Eve night and left from Baker City, Oregon, all the way to Tri-Cities, the last 150-mile leg, just over the pass, Dead Man's Pass, through Pendleton and up. The very next day, I was here by about 2 on the 1st. So, of course, the story doesn't start there, because what are we at? January 21st, 11:30 p.m. right now. So I get into town, and this house isn't ready. Frankly, it still really isn't ready. There's still like paint that needs to be patched up. We're getting our kitchen countertops, but the flooring was basically in. We had no fridge, no stove, no microwave, no countertops. There's just still like no blinds, but it's all understandable. Like, this has been a rental and we're in the renovation phase. So we're kind of here earlier than we should, but it is what it is. So instead of being here, I had to drop my stuff off, everything right in this room, and then just take the bare essentials up to his old parents' house that was still on the market for sale. So pick up a room up on the upper tier. I know Kiwi's about ready to pop, but I don't know when. And being on the road and everything that's kind of happening over the holidays, they didn't take necessary things into account as far as getting her into the vet, doing an x-ray, figuring out how many puppies there were, having all the supplies readily available, because everything was here. And then I'm up there, and the very first night, Kiwi wakes me up at 5 a.m. and she's ready. Her water breaks within an hour to an hour and a half. We got our first puppy. That day was very, very long. But in the long run, we had 9 total puppies. Now, you can see those puppies in their highlights as I'm trying to move through that on this channel as well. So, just go to the Ridgeback Puppies playlist. But yeah, like being in Washington 24 hours, Kiwi was born here. And within 24 hours of being back in Washington State, she gives birth to her litter of 9. It's incredible. So many puppies. They're going to be 3 weeks old in a couple days. So I'm still not working. I'm still debating on things. As I had said, I sold the Durango. So since I got here, I also had to buy another car. So I bought an auction car, found out that it had some issues in terms of the suspension, where kind of like while you're driving, it would pull and just hitting a slight bump. Luckily, there's a mechanic guy that lives right here across the street. Bought the parts. He threw it in for like $200 or so, and then I put on new tires. Everything's firm and sweet now. So still feel like I've got a really good deal on the ride, but it's a lot newer, bigger upgrade, fancier, got all the package, safety, blah, blah, blah. Just gonna be a lot better for a commuter car for me to be going from, if I'm gonna be in Washington, back to Utah and back and forth a decent amount. So that has happened. But yeah, in terms of work, I'm literally, that's where the financials kind of come into play. I think the biggest thing right now is because of the influx of money that I have been able to receive over the last year and save, I decided to close out my savings account, keep bare minimum in my checking account, and I threw everything into a portfolio with Webull, where I got 4 free stocks. Now, if you don't know anything about the stock market, it's, it tends to be really risky, and it is very risky. But at the same time, savings accounts right now are paying such crap that it doesn't make any sense whatsoever to keep my money there, where they're just going to use it the same exact way that I'm going to be trying to use it. So in the matter of the time frame for me opening that on November 12th to today, I'm up about $6,000. So I'm actually making more money not working via the stock market. So granted, I'm not accounting for all the taxes and different deductions and things that are happening in the middle, but because I basically just haven't taken anything out yet. But with a portfolio very sizable that I can kind of live off of in this meantime. So as I was talking about that 7-year cycle, I just graduated. Now I'm in this beginning phase. I'm starting a lot of new things where I've got puppies to sell, new car, new state, New house, 9 puppies. I already said that, but and then I'm doing this landscaping project here for the backyard right now that I'll be working on, trying to throw as much as I can up on the YouTube channel as well. But ultimately, I think I just wanted to open up this for a moment and get you all up to speed, essentially. So I hope that gets you up to speed. Ultimately, there's always infinite possibilities when we kind of take the necessary steps. And I guess the most significant thing in all of this was that, as I'd mentioned before, I've had different periods in my life where I've really avoided alcohol for very much personal reasons, but I had declared January 2nd last year that I wasn't going to be drinking again for another year. And as I just stated, it just so happened that January 2nd is the birth date of all my new puppies. So it's kind of one of those manifestation things where everything seems to kind of like fall into alignment exactly how it should be. So it kind of felt like a big gift, a big reminder of like the blessings that you're, in terms of sacrifice something that can be ultimately kind of destructive to my life, ultimately very disruptive to my life, and then sending me on this crazy different tangent. So yes, it's going to be a year of fear, of uncertainty, of unknowing, a lot of new opportunities and baselines. But I guess the biggest thing with this new 7-year cycle starting for me is allowing myself to embrace that type of change, that type of opportunity. And I know full well that I'm capable of managing it. The other thing that's happening at the moment is one of the very first things I had done for Green Bay Packers on my NFL channel, as they're my team, was use this little clip from the NFC Championship game in 2016 against the Atlanta Falcons. And this is, hearsay, whatever, but it's really kind of, it takes me back because it's a clip of Aaron Rodgers sitting next to Jordy Nelson on the bench while they're losing in like the fourth quarter, and Aaron Rodgers iterating, "We need one of these at home. Never played an NFC Championship game at home." And this weekend, just so happens, with all this new change, that has now been a 4-year cycle. And where are they going? They're staying in Lambeau, playing an NFC Championship game against Tom Brady. So, go Packers. I know that they can do it. I know that it's kind of like one of those things you just got to put it out in the universe. So, I do believe that all this isn't just for happenstance. It kind of happens for a reason. There's a lot of different things that work behind the scenes, and in terms of the relationships of cosmic forces that kind of go beyond the standard way of maybe looking at life generally. So I really am very appreciative for this opportunity to be here. I've got all the camera work that I need, or cameras that I need. I've got more puppies than I need, and a lot of new projects to be undertaking in the backyard and beyond. So stay tuned. We're going to have a lot more for 2021. Hopefully all this other pandemic stuff will sort itself out. I won't offer my opinion in terms of the new Biden administration or anything else on the political sphere, for as best as I can stay out of the nonsense. So, deal with it as best as you can. Take it with a grain of salt. Just do your best. Always just do your best. So thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. You all have a great day. Enjoy 2021. Let's go. Peace.